thumbs up, thumbs down. Are you familiar with SACCOs?
Sorry, could you repeat that?
Yeah, I was asking Eric if he's familiar with the concept of a SACCO, or SACCO. Um, it's a type of financial organization that is very old, um, commonly used in historically in many places across Africa, um, the Middle East, um, both Americas, the Caribbean, Asia, and Europe. SACCO stands for Savings and Credit Cooperative Organization. A place that they are extraordinarily popular is in Kenya. They're even regulated in Kenya because of how popular they are. And it's this really ingenious and, again, very old financial organization where people come together cooperatively to to save money. And with that pool of money that these communities collectively save, they make loans to group members, they make investments, um, and they simply save the money. They can even, at advanced levels, these organizations can even be invested in and then use the investments they receive from other institutions to invest and loan money to their members. So it's a very, at the core of it, it's very simple. You join the organization, you, at every particular time period, be that a week, a month, whatever the time period is, you deposit a predetermined amount of money, and you do that consistently. In some of them, where it's a rotating credit organization, which is a very common form, one member gets repaid, not repaid, they get paid a multiple of what they put in. So maybe you're putting in $10 a month, and your payout, when you get a payout, is $120. Um, just because of the number of people who are in the organization and how you've managed the finances of the organization. And that could happen maybe after the first week you put in. So somebody has to go first. So maybe you just put in your $10 and you're getting 120 out, and then you pay that back over time. Whereas somebody who happens to get their payout in the third week or the fifth week, they will have paid up more, and then ultimately it will go far enough where everybody has received the disbursement while everybody has continued to pay in equally. Because even after, in the week that you receive the disbursement, you don't not also put in your consistent amount. And people use these lump sums that they get to do important investments in their own lives. Maybe buying a home, often buying a business. And in certain circumstances, these are the only loans that people can get access to. And so it may be that it's not a rotating credit organization. It's a more of a conventional savings and credit cooperative. Oftentimes, they're giving people access to 3 to 4 times what they've initially invested in loans that they can access. So maybe they put in $100, they're able to get 300, 400 out. And this is very often how people are able to start businesses. And then with the revenue from those businesses, they pay back the loan and the interest of the loan. And then so the SACCO itself makes money. Um, so, what does this have to do with us? Well, a lot of these concepts that we're talking about, with regard to SACCOs, aligns extremely well with what we are building and the environment that we're building in. So traditionally, people associate these types of organizations with their grandparents. These are very old organizations, definitely not a modern invention by any shape or form. Um, and so a lot of younger folks are not as aware of and involved in them in many places. Although Kenya stands out as an exception. They actually learn about them in high school there. It matches the Web3 ethos very, very well in the sense that these organizations that are called SACCOs are member owned, they're transparent, and they're member run via some predetermined governance procedure, which I'm sure sounds extremely familiar to anybody who has come across the concept of a DAO. The impact that these organizations have is huge because they're able to touch everyone throughout the economy, including people at the bottom of the income ladder. It allows for slow accumulation, people saving over time. So it empowers, can automate and incentivize individual saving. And it can allow people who can't qualify for credit or can't afford the cost of capital to demonstrate their capacity to pay, so that not only members of their community but also outsiders can trust them. And of course, it's something that we talk about in terms of developing credit scores, which Sriram can speak more about. Um, so this is very akin to our QuickBank, and in fact, is empowered by our QuickBank technology. All of these operations are doable within the QuickBank. The difference is that SACCOs have some limitations. They require guarantors often, or assets of some kind, collateral, to take out the loans. But with our credit scores, people can demonstrate over time that they will pay back the loans, just like people do with their credit cards now, where I don't need collateral to get a credit card loan, because I have a credit score that assures the lender that I am not a credit risk. And so they will lend me the money despite my maybe not having access to that collateral. And so that's just one of the ways in which our technology is able to take what SACCOs are already able to do at you know, agrarian age speed, and bring it into the new digital age. Sriram, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, sorry. So, I have several thoughts. One, with regard to, well, first of all, this is the first time I'm hearing about SACCO, so this is really great that you were able to bring up the topic. I think definitely that there are synergies between what we are doing with the QuickBank. So I think one can think about almost instantiating a SACCO, with a QuickBank structure. So in other words, how I'm thinking about this is that a QuickBank or a collection of QuickBanks can create sort of the underlying structure upon which a SACCO can operate, or a collection of SACCOs can operate. And this works really well also with the, particularly the multi-sig, multi-user wallet capabilities, right? That's what will make it really useful. that's one. And the second thing is, as I guess most listeners will know by now, addressing non-traditional credit risk. And what I mean by non-traditional credit risk is traditional credit risk models use FICO scores or some equivalent method for assessing a person's creditworthiness. And I think while that works well in an economy like the United States, developing economies, it just hasn't taken off, I think, to the extent that it has here, and for multiple reasons. And I don't want to belabor the point too much, but I think the main thing there is that most of the developing economies that I sort of have in mind are largely cash based, and so that's one. And second thing is just general faith. I think faith in the lender that the recipient will repay, and also faith in the person who's taking out the loan that that they will be treated fairly and in some cases humanely. Are either one or both of those are non-existent, or exist not in the full sense of the concept. So I think the integration of the SACCO idea with what we're trying to build will definitely address that. So thanks again for bringing that up.
Absolutely, and part of the reason that I came to it is because I don't think that it even requires us to build any differently. In the sense that as we create a system where people can create these custom quick banks where they get to set up their own rules for how those things are governed. Really, a SACCO is just a treasury with a governance layer on top of it, with typically, traditionally, a specific set of basic rules and guidelines about how that money is distributed based on some subtleties to what type of organization it is. So I think that what I realized when I came across the name of this concept, I heard of and researched SUSUs and Tontines and these types of organizations as we were conceiving the idea and beginning to build it out, but did not come across this more overarching terminology that, of course, led me to a vast ocean of other resources about the history of these organizations. Come to find out that it's ubiquitous across the world, but it's not digitally enabled. And realizing that what we are building enables it to enter into the digital realm and into the new digital age. And that's amazing because I think that the best ideas emerge when we find a way to connect not Web 2 to Web 3, but the Stone Age to Web 3. Like if there's been something that humans have been doing successfully for centuries, millennia, and it hasn't been improvable. There hasn't been a way to level it up to the next level before Web 3. And Web 3 offers that opportunity. That's where the real magic lies. When we already got Web 2 solutions for things, well, the Web 2 solution is probably a pretty darn good solution compared to many solutions that many people still have to deal with. Whereas when we have, let's say, problems that have been very, very, very long in the soul, and we can solve those problems, we can add more total value to the world. And so I don't think that this even requires, it's not even it barely requires, I mean, there are some things that are concepts that may inform subtleties of the building process, I think, but it's very it's very, very, very neatly in alignment with what we are building now. And so that's why I find it so, that's part of why I find it so attractive, because it's like it was just waiting there for us to discover. What do you think?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think they sort of are trying to address the same problem. I think it's just that the SACCO concept is more on sort of the so in other words, I think there are two sides of the same coin in some sense. So the SACCO idea addresses sort of like um, not so much of the mechanics of how that happens, but the operational aspects. You know what I mean? Whereas the quick bank is more of like, okay, how do we actually implement this and things like that. So
Absolutely. Yeah, it's like the when we're trying to figure out, okay, well, we're building the tool. What are the governance rules that it makes sense to have available for people to choose, or what are the governance structures that should be in place on the platform for people to utilize? And the answer, we didn't have to reinvent the wheel to find the answer to those questions, because we can see these systems that have hundreds of years of traction. So we don't have to, validate whether or not people will use it, or whether or not it works, because we know that, because we can look at, 1,000 years of history. There's that concept from Nassim Taleb, Big Lindy. I'm a big Nassim Taleb fan, despite his, grouchiness. And I really believe in that. Like, things that have worked consistently over and over and over again, that shows their strength and resilience against change and time and different things that may happen. And so when we can put that secure ancient infrastructure into code and allow people to implement it more efficiently and effectively, so that they can communicate and cooperate better, that's amazing. And just some fun numbers. So there was a there was a point at which, just some numbers from Africa about the use of SACCOs. Um, so there was a time when, let's see, in Addis Ababa in Ethiopia, ECHUB membership, uh, which is like the Ethiopian version of a SACCO, was estimated at 60% of the urban population, and 90% of craftsmen. Um, and so 90% is a lot. And we're talking about targeting individuals and businesses. And it's really business owners who are the backbone of the SACCO movement, because they're the ones who find that they have those needs for that bigger amount of capital. Oftentimes, people join a SACCO and then become a business person because they needed that access to capital, or that merry-go-round payment, in order to have enough money to start that business. There is a time when in um, in Benin, almost every man and woman above 18 was in a tontine, at least one. Pretty much everybody, and so there's people who were in actually more than one. And this is just two stories. I mean, they're in use in Indonesia, other places in Asia, in the early Americas, in Europe, popular in the Caribbean. We know about susus and padnas that they use in Jamaica, and so this is something that works. Um, and so that is such a blessing to have, to understand that we don't have to invent new. We have to invent the technology to digitize the function, but we don't have to reinvent the function because we already know how people historically have collaborated financially in these cooperative financial organizations. So I think that would, remove some of the guesswork and some of the, product testing that we would have to do as we go to market, because we know what type of governance structure, or we can look to what type of governance structure that makes sense to use. What do you think?
No, absolutely. No, I think especially on the historical point. So if you think about the current, and and this is so what I'm about to say is sort of kind of also verges on my opinion also, so it's not all fact. But if you think about the current financial system, the banking system, more or less across the world, right? So based on the idea of a central bank and all of that kind of stuff, that is actually historically very new in the overall sort of human endeavor of finance, right? I mean, going back to whenever, right? So if you think about the United States, there were several attempts at creating a central bank, and this goes back to like Alexander Hamilton's writings and his views of it, and on the other side of the aisle as well. But the United States, for instance, didn't have a central bank until the first decade of the 1900s. And so, first or 1914 is when the Federal Reserve Act was signed. And the story is similar across the world. And so, this is actually a kind of new, if you think about it, way of organizing financial relationships and banking and so on. But these ideas, so the Suzu ideas, and like you said, in different parts of the world, in Asia and Africa and so on, they predate quote unquote modern banking by, in some cases, centuries, right? And so I guess what I'm trying to get at here is that all of this stuff that we're talking about is, in some sense, going back to the roots of how humans interacted with each other to exchange value. And so I think when we recast it in that way, we're actually going back to and empowering the individual, rather than the individual. Well, I would say not rather, but in addition to the individual being a participant of the economy, it's more than the individual being just a cog in this bigger machine, because they can actually participate in a more wholesome fashion. And I think that a lot of the stuff that you're talking about with the SACCOs and SUSUs and I think the general trend of this technology is to take us historically back, I guess, in terms of revisiting those alternate financial models, but implementing them with modern day technology, which makes them more efficient.
Absolutely, more efficient and more powerful. I think ORO takes several functionalities into the new digital age. When with the quick banks, we allow people to create the digital wallet that they can own as a collective, where the community can collectively manage the wallet through their setup instructions, be they setting it up like a cookie cutter SACCO of some sort, or with some other bespoke instructions that they want to be able to set it up with, and vote on wallet activities. And then with the wallet recording the contributions and outflows, and then automatically dispersing the money to the appropriate account to the appropriate time period, you avoid the potential for scams and mismanagement. Because actually recently there was a spate of fraudulent SACCOs over the quarantine period that hit a lot of communities, and people were losing a lot of money because they were being misled. And so with our transparency and the fact that the people who make the contributions actually own and control a piece of that organization will prevent that type of thing from happening. And then also the chat functionality inside the app can reduce frictions, given that any discussions can happen right within the app where the financial decisions are made. And so, we're fundamentally designed to allow folks to create and manage community economies. And so, we take these principles from SACCOs, one of the most resilient forms of community economics humans have devised, and we bring them up to date with modern tools. It's 4:29. We've got a minute left. Is there anything that any final word you'd like to share with people, Sriram?
Yeah, just to follow up on your last comment and tying that also with my previous comment. So I think when it comes to trust, right, and this is also a shout out to Lee as work writings as well. So I think the central bank sort of system that we have in place, right, is to evoke trust in the participants, that you have this, very powerful figure that is sort of behind you and taking care of to make sure. Now, for whether that is indeed always the case or not is a different matter, but at least in principle, that's what it's there for, right? In addition to the government, but I think when we can establish trust in financial interactions with individuals by a different mechanism, right? In this case, technology or innovative use of technology. I think this is again just feeding into the larger debate that seems to be always happening now between central banks and the sort of typical financial structure, banking structure that we have, and all of these alternative, innovative, other interaction opportunities that technology leads us to. So I think I personally am kind of leaning more towards the innovation and looking at alternative methods of financial interactions between individuals. That's sort of where I generally lean. But I think, to your point with regard to the fraudulent activity and so on and so forth, I think definitely the technology needs to be robust and smart enough to alleviate those issues. And again, I know we're out of time, but I think that's where a lot of AI can actually help, because AI models are already used in fraud detection to a large extent, and with great success. But maybe that's a topic for next week or next time.
Well, with that, I'd just like to give one final word. You may have heard it before. We like to stay classical here. We're bringing the SACCO from the agrarian age to the modern age, and we're going to go with some ancient proverbs as well. You all know that if you want to go fast, you go alone, and if you want to go far, you go together. Well, here at ORO, we like to say, if you want to get rich, go alone.
Absolutely.
If you want to build wealth, go with ORO. See you next time.